All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the Quarter 2 Public Safety Update for the City of South Bend and the South Bend Police Department. There are a couple of new faces here, so I just wanted to kind of explain how today is going to work. We started these quarterly safety updates about 2-3 years ago as a way to enhance our transparency of our department and our city and some of the tactics that we are implementing to curb violence in South Bend and to connect with our community. So this is probably over a dozen of these now. So what's going to happen is this presentation is focused only on Quarter 2 of 2025 because we already did Quarter 1 earlier this year. But keep in mind that we understand there are some cases, because it's been a pretty action-packed last week or two, that do not fall within Quarter 2, so we can talk about that if you do have questions at the end. There will be a Q&A session at the end that we will have the opportunity to answer any of your questions. So we're going to dive right in. Last time I accidentally stole the thunder from Mayor Mueller, and I don't want to do that again. So before we get into some of our announcements, I'm going to go ahead and have the panel introduce themselves, and then generally Chief Ruszkowski and Mayor Mueller will give some opening remarks. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that. Thank you.
I'll start us off. I'm Dan Skibins, and I'm the Assistant Chief for the South Bend Police Department.
James Mueller, Mayor of South Bend.
Scott Ruszkowski, South Bend Police Chief. Andrew Hines, Lieutenant of the Detective Bureau. Mayor.
Well, thank you for joining us, and to the new faces, welcome. I do want to hit a couple of things just because there are some new folks, and the folks who have been here before are going to, just bear with us. You've been through this before. But, we started these updates a few years ago, and it was a very different situation at that time. We were short officers, and our violence rates were accelerating during the pandemic, and so one of the ideas for this update was, one, to be transparent about the strategies and the different initiatives that we're doing to tackle those issues. So you'll see we still focus heavily on looking at how recruitment's going, and we look heavily about how criminally assaulted shooting victims are going. So that's if you look at why is the presentation set up in this way, this has been set up in this way for a number of years. Even though we have good stories to tell on both our staffing levels and on gun violence in the community. So that's just one note. And then the second note, we've gone over a little more detail about our strategies and things. But in the police department, there are three division chiefs. There's patrol, so there's the officers on the ground responding to calls for service and patrolling during the 24/7. 365 days a year, and so we have adopted strategies to maximize the impact. We can't have officers on every corner of every street at all times, but we want to make sure that those officers are having an impact at decreasing crime, and so there's a strategy that we'll get to later to do that. There's, of course, our Detective Bureau, and a few years ago, they always did lower level crimes, but a few years ago, we brought back homicide investigations into South Bend Police Department, and since that time, our solve rate has been very high. There's stretches where we're at 100%. Overall, I believe we're between 80 to 90% since we took that over, compared to, I think it was 60-some% when it was Metro homicide, and the national average is closer to 50%. So, our Detective Bureau is doing a great job of solving homicides and other crimes, and that's one reason why we believe numbers have gone down the way they have. And then we have our group violence intervention strategy that first and foremost is reaching out to the few folks that are driving the majority of the violence, and offering them a path to get off to a peaceful path, and a path that won't likely lead to their own shooting death or imprisonment. And so that's the first step, but then the backstop to that is if they don't choose to accept those services and that path, that we need to stop them. They can't be allowed to drive violence in our neighborhood, in our community. And so that's where the Strategic Focus Unit is in particular involved in that to make sure that we are stopping violent criminals in our streets. So those are kind of the three legs from the South Bend Police Department's part of this equation, and so it's also why you'll see the presentation is set up the way it is. With that, I don't have any other news to share. Thanks, Ashley.
Chief?
Oh, so some of the things that the mayor had said, yeah, this has been around for about 4 years now that we've been doing the public safety update. So we've always had our transparency hub since I've been chief. That's one of the things that people have looked at and asked questions about. Fast forward into how the mayor and we have presented the public safety update is based on that transparency hub. So this is just a little more of an explanation. Our INT department helped us put this together. And it primarily from our community, the questions came on what they would like to hear from us, and then notably, the ones who have been here, seasoned veterans, Annie Kate and others, have asked questions or would like to see whatever it is included in these. That's at the point we are right now. So for the ones who haven't been here before, if you see something you'd like to include in this, please let us know.
So before we get into the data from Q2, we just have a couple announcements from the police department. A couple fun events we have coming up. We have our patch coloring contest for kids that gives children 18 and under the ability to try their hand at designing a specialized patch for our department. You can use crayons, colored pencils, markers, whatever you like. We already have a great response. Those pictures are going to be due a week from today at 11:59 p.m. Very precise. So looking forward to see the great art from some local kids. National Night Out is also coming up. It's one of our biggest events of the year and also one of the biggest events of the year for many police departments across the country. It's a national, as the name would suggest, event. Tuesday, August 5th, 5:30 to 7:30. We're going to have it here in our east parking lot. We have a lot of great vendors. I think we're up to somewhere between 40 and 50 vendors for this. So always a good time for us to meet our community in this fun, low-stress environment and get some free food, drinks. You maybe even get to soak an officer in the dunk tank. You never know. So always a good time. Our Citizens Police Academy, we recently added a second police academy. We have one in the spring and one in the fall for citizens who are curious how we do things here at the PD. Some of our different specialty units. Do we answer questions like, do you guys have ticket quotas? Do you X, Y, and Z? So a lot of fun questions come from those. We have a couple spots available left. We're asking people to apply by August 1st. The application is on our website and our social media. I also encourage the journalists in the room to please take part. It certainly helps. Camille was a graduate of that academy and can speak to the value of the education that you receive. Back to school cookout, I know it's already time. I was at Meyer and they already have the back to school stuff out really quick, so it's going to be here before we know it. To help celebrate that, we're going to have our back to school cookout at Southeast Park on Friday, August 15th from 11 to 2. So please come out. We'll have the bounce house, weather permitting. It's just a really good time. Food, drink, games, similar to National Night Out, just on a slightly smaller scale. And Prospect Day, we talked about our Citizens Police Academy, but another big focus is, of course, our actual police academy and getting some more recruits here and adding some officers. Our next one-day hiring event is on Saturday, August 23rd, so we're about a month away. We've been trying to publicize that as much as possible, so if you could help us spread the word. Applications are due by August 18th. And lastly from me, if you've been on our website lately, you might notice it has a new look. We worked with our city INT and an outside vendor to develop a new and improved South Bend Police Department website, hopefully making it easier to find what you need. Some of the most visited sites on the page are now prioritized, and we got rid of some of the stuff that we were noticing people weren't really visiting or engaging with. So this is a constant work in progress. It's going to keep getting bigger and better, so we encourage you to visit at southbendpolice.com. And with that, I'll hand it over.
I'm going to cover our next two slides, and I'll do my best to project my voice and not sound like I'm yelling at you all.
Well,
if you're not picking me up on the mics, let me know. I can slide them closer if need be, if that's necessary. The next two slides, I'm talking about staffing for the South Bend Police Department, recruitment, hiring, and then we have a short slide that also shows our diversity percentage in our priority areas. So to close out quarter two, we were at 251 police officers. In quarter two, we hired one new police officer, and we lost 3 officers to either retirement or resignation in Q2. We have, so you know, in the last year, we've maintained in our low 250s to mid 250s, so this number hasn't changed much in the last 6 to 9 months. I can give you future projections for our staffing. We just hired 10 new recruits who leave for the police academy in a week and a half. They are expected to graduate from the academy. We don't have a date yet, but it should be in November. So we will be swearing in those 10 officers, should they pass everything, either in November or in December. So we'll see a pretty considerable increase in our staffing numbers at the end of this year. The next slide shows our diversity, and as you can see, we have a slight uptick in each of those areas. I do know that the next group of 10 that are going to the academy, you will see an increase in all 3 of these areas if those officers are all able to pass the academy. And that is the 2 slides I have for the time being. I believe we're sliding it over to Chief Ruszkowski for the next few.
Mayor's got some pretty good coordination, so that's why we put him in the middle to do that.
To move the microphones,
Yeah, as well as that. So we have our gun violence snapshot. So if you look at this time last year, we had 337 gun violence incidents. We had 289 in Q2. Criminal assault shootings, the victims, we've had 25 as of the end of June. We had 33 at that same time period last year. And then 280 guns recovered, and then 388 in that same time period last year. I think for some of the new people who may not know, the gun violence incidents, that encompasses every firearm, not just so people will look at it and go, oh my gosh, you've had 289 shooting incidents. That is not true. 289 times we've had gun-involved incidents. So that could be anything from found property gun up to shooting and or a homicide, if it involved a firearm. Also, when you see the counts, we do not include, this is only criminal assault shootings. We do not include suicides, accidental or intentional self-inflicted that was not a suicide, and those have happened. I was at one myself where that happened. Somebody wanted to know what it felt like to get shot and shot themselves. And I'll leave that right there. You can ask me later if you need to. Sergeant Hines, do you need me to scoot?
I can yell if everybody can hear me. Good morning. Looking at our criminally assaulted shooting victims through Q2 of 2025, we've had 25 criminally assaulted shooting victims year to date. For Q2, we've had 20, which is quite a significant increase from Q1. However, that's typically to be expected with warmer months, people being out of school, things of that nature. Of those numbers, we have had, in the last quarter, we have had 1 fatal shooting. So you can kind of see the downward trend from last year is down from 33 to 25, and a fairly significant downward trend over the last 5 years. Taking us to our next slide there, reference our murder investigations for Q2. We do have 1 open murder investigation. It is still open, however, we anticipate giving you a case update very shortly in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. Total death investigations for Q2, we're looking at 4 death investigations with, as I said, 1 total murder victim from Q2.
I'm going to cover this next slide since Captain Mueller is out, and to reiterate these stats that we showed are just for Q2, so if you have additional info or question about year-to-date stats, just let us know, but again, this is covering Q2. Michiana Crime Stoppers, as you know, works with not just the South Bend Police Department, but dozens of law enforcement agencies across the Michiana area to provide an anonymous tip line and an anonymous tip website to submit information about felony crimes and felony fugitives. I'm not going to go through each one, but you can kind of see there the stats for Q2, continuing to see good response from our community and using it as a trusted source to report information. A lot of times people feel a fear that if they are snitching on someone or they don't want it to get back to a suspect that someone shared information about them. Michiana Crime Stoppers is a great way for that information to be shared, completely anonymous, no caller ID, no IP address tracking. So we're continuing to see great utilization from our community in events, not just shootings, but things like thefts and frauds and of that nature. And of course, as we said, felony fugitives. So we appreciate Crime Stoppers and their partnership, and we continue to see great growth there. And now we'll go into our strategies and programs.
I believe I have the next 8 to 10 slides, Chief.
Okay.
And up first, I have traffic enforcement with new faces in the room. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about this than I did in the first quarter this year. About 2 to 2.5 years ago, we were able to maintain our staffing levels so that we could properly perform traffic enforcement. One of the top things through surveys from our residents as well as from our council members is they wanted to see an improvement from South Bend PD in traffic enforcement to deal with dangerous driving in the city. And so we made some changes here at the police department, and we staffed our shifts, all 3 of them, first, second, and third detail. Day shift is 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Afternoon shift, second detail is 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And our night shift starts at 10 p.m. and runs till 6 a.m. All 3 shifts we staffed with more officers so that they could perform traffic enforcement at the shift level. Most of the shifts are able to perform multiple traffic cars every single day. When we're down with staffing because of vacations, sometimes there's only 1 traffic car out, but oftentimes you'll see 2 to 3 traffic cars on each of our shifts every single day. And so on the bar chart, you see here, quarter 2, we had quite the increase compared to quarter 2 of last year, which is good to see. We did have a slight dip in quarter 1 after having some discussions on how we could utilize resources at the shift level. I'm glad to see that improvement took hold in quarter 2 of this year, averaging 39, almost 40 traffic stops per day. When our staffing was down, we were around 10 traffic stops per day when we had 209, 210 officers back 2.5, 3 years ago. So quite the increase, and we're hoping to see a greater impact on some of the traffic crashes throughout the city. On the next slide, I'm going to talk briefly about that. Identifying in 2024 which intersections we saw the most collisions at, and pushing those out to the patrol shifts so that they can have their officers focus on those intersections has been a priority for us in 2025. We haven't seen that take hold at every intersection, but you can see at Western and Walnut, I wanted to point this one out, that intersection saw the most injury accidents last year, and so it's good to see that has dropped. These numbers you see before you here are both non-injury and injury accidents. That was one of the priorities in quarter 1 and quarter 2 for us. Some of the other intersections we haven't seen the decrease, so I've already talked with our traffic coordinator about quarter 3, focusing on those so we can hopefully start to see dips in traffic accidents in those intersections as well. What did I leave out, Chief?
Just a notable on that, based on those assignments is, and Dan had pointed out, so with our missions area, we also include the traffic stops of themselves. It's not just at that intersection, it's several blocks around those intersections that those are occurring. And I know the question always comes up, and the new ones are probably thinking the same thing, is you got 25 or 30 cops working, why wouldn't there be more? So that's still a work in progress. And I'll leave that part right there. But other than that, Dan, that's all I had.
All right. I saw you lean forward, Chief.
Yeah,
sorry.
thanks.
All right, moving on to the next slide, I have up next Fusus. That's the technology that's utilized in our real-time crime center. So with all the integrated cameras, with our license plate readers, with our gunfire detection system, Fusus manages all that through the computer system so that our real-time crime center analysts can help officers who are out in the streets. And also cases that have been assigned, they can go back and look at any footage that we may have that could help them with an investigation. And so on the next slide, you'll see our Fusus usage, which is basically our real-time crime center usage. Officers in the streets can also use Fusus, but now that we're staffing the real-time crime center 5 to 6 days a week, that usually falls on them. And so an improvement compared to last quarter and also compared to quarter 2 of last year. That is due to one of the factors is staffing in the real-time crime center. We did increase in quarter 2 of this year. And also the number of cameras that we now have integrated into the real-time crime center. Through South Bend Sync, the camera registry, To start off this year, we had 52 cameras that were business-owned. We had 52 businesses that integrated all of their cameras to the Real-Time Crime Center in January of this year. Right now, we have 79. So quite an increase from the start of this year with business-owned cameras integrated. So that's going to help boost that number, as well as our staffing in the Real-Time Crime Center, and that's why you're seeing those drastic increases. I still hope to see continued increases as our analysts get better at what they're doing. We've had the Real-Time Crime Center for a little over 2 years, and their experience in their utilizing that technology has made them better at what they're doing. And we're adding new technologies all the time to our strategies. And so with proper training and bringing in more staffing, I certainly expect those numbers to continue to go up. The next few slides, I have some highlights from the Real-Time Crime Center success stories. Last time, I think we shared 2 or 3, and this time we have several. So again, with that increase of the usage of the Real-Time Crime Center, hope to see more of these success stories. The first of which is a stolen truck and trailer. You probably saw on our social media, Ashley highlighted this at the end of June. An individual had a truck and trailer stolen from in front of a residence, and the Real-Time Crime Center immediately jumped on that and started utilizing our license plate readers as well as cameras in the area where the vehicle was taken, giving a direction of travel to officers who were out there responding to this call. Just a short time later, they were able to identify a suspect, find the property, both the truck and trailer, which were separated at the time, and get those back to the property owner within just a few hours. And so a good highlight for us with the Real-Time Crime Center with our analysts jumping on that right away. The next we had a woman who had dementia was reported missing. Again, our Real-Time Crime Center began working on the license plate that the individual was last seen in. We, utilizing our flock license plate readers, again able to give a last known direction to officers out on the streets. They were able to identify where this female was who was suffering from dementia and cancel the missing persons report and get her back to safety. 2 more on the next slide. One would be a shot spotter occurrence, so gunfire detection. Analysts immediately began looking at cameras in the area and identified possible suspects fleeing from the area of shots fired. Their work helped those officers identify the location where this actually took place, and they were able to get evidence such as casings from the scene, and those linked to other cases that have happened throughout the city, so helping with leads for our investigations for future. And then going into, we had an abduction of a 2-year-old child. While we're working on an Amber Alert, and that had not even been initiated yet, at the same time, the Real-Time Crime Center began working again, putting information out into our license plate readers to identify the suspect vehicle that was involved. And those officers, again, were able to quickly respond, find the vehicle, and bring the child to safety.
And the fire truck, we didn't put the fire truck.
We did have a fire truck, but that was, I believe, from Q1, so we're not going to highlight that one again,
Mayor,
Chief.
I couldn't let that go.
The last success story that we have was an ag assault where shots were fired and then a vehicle crashed into a house. Again, very similar to the other shot spotter incident where information from a gas station that had integrated cameras directly to the Real-Time Crime Center, they were able to share that information with officers responding to the scene so they could quickly locate a suspect vehicle and put together a description of the suspects involved in that case. That information was shared with the St. Joe County Police Department, and these suspects were also suspects in several thefts that occurred out in St. Joe County. So our Real-Time Crime Center having an impact on area law enforcement and public safety as well, not just here in the city. Flock LPRs, I talked quite a bit about those in the Real-Time Crime Center stuff. So we have 45 throughout the city. Those are located on major thoroughfares throughout the city of South Bend, and we've had great success using those over the last 2.5 years. Some highlights in the past helping us to solve a handful of homicides over the last 2.5 years. You see a snapshot here of what that looks like for successes and the breakdown of where those successes are at. 42 this past quarter compared to 38 in the first quarter of 2025. Moving on to Resource Router, technology that we utilize for resource deployment. It's computer-generated missions. There are 72 missions per day that go out to our officers on the street. These are based on crime that had taken place recently. So in any crime from a firearm-related offense, which we have the system heavily towards firearm crimes versus property crimes. However, if there's a string of property crimes, then the computer system also generates missions for those as well. So the officers have to spend time in these zones during their shift. It's a resource deployment tool that puts officers where they're needed most. So there's officer presence. Hopefully we can either deter crime, keep it from happening again, or even possibly identify a suspect. So the officers can get out on foot in these areas, they can ride bikes in these areas, they can park their car and type reports in these areas. It's about officer presence in these areas that hopefully deters crime for the future. We have seen success from this. There are many factors to why our gun violence is down, but this is of course one of those. You can see that we have 98% completion on the 72 missions per day during Q2. We have maintained between 98 and 99% for the last 2 years that we've been utilizing resource routers. So happy with those. Our officers and supervisors know the expectations on those, and we're getting good results from that. That is the last slide that I have. Chief, did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
Just a side note on those traffic stops, those are only traffic violations that officers witnessed. They're not in response to a call, they're not from a call or anything like that. That is just legitimate traffic stops witnessed by the officers.
Before we open it up to questions, I just wanted to highlight a couple events we have coming up. I know we talked about it at the beginning, but just to drive it one more time. And again, for those who are new to South Bend and to covering the police department, I again encourage you to familiarize yourself with the Police Transparency Hub. The link is there on the bottom left. That is updated regularly, so we knew that I, in my office, was receiving a lot of inquiries, a lot about how many shootings have you had, how many robberies have you had, what's that compared to this. So we developed that so that you can access that 24/7. We know that your news cycle is constant, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to get those stats on demand. So a couple events coming up. Like I said, National Night Out. Citizens Police Academy, reminder that deadline is August 1st to join the Fall Academy. And we are continuing our monthly community crime stat meetings. We have those on the second Wednesday of each month at 6:30 right here in this auditorium. It'll give you a look at crime from the prior month, and we'll talk about how things have maybe gone up, gone down, what we are doing to address some problem areas that we're noticing, some trends, and it gives you the opportunity, the public, to ask questions. And of course, our Summer Prospect Day with applications being due on August 18th. So with that, we will open it up to questions.
I'll go ahead and start. So it seems like, if you want to talk about general trends, the beginning of the year was pretty quiet, calm, and it seems like crime has ramped up maybe a little bit as the weather's gotten warmer. What would you say about the general trends of crime in South Bend?
I can go first. Historically, that is a consistent trend. When the weather's colder, our averages over the last 10 years for firearm-related offenses are down. During the warmer months, we always see an increase, and sometimes that's more drastic than others. But compared to last year, our numbers are still down during those warm months. So I'm not saying we're satisfied or we're happy with where we're at. We adjust our resources as needed, and we've seen an impact from that. We had a couple park shootings from a few weeks ago. We immediately adjusted our resources, and we have not had gun violence in the park since then. And criminals, they realize that we make changes. They realize we utilize different technologies such as our LVTs, so our live video trailers. We utilize those quite a bit as well, putting those in areas where we've seen gun violence. And so they'll change locations where they're hanging out. Gang members will hang out in different locations, and so we just have to continue to make adjustments and do a good job every week at trying to forecast where our officers are needed most.
But I just did a presentation yesterday to Board of Safety again, my monthly, and we were down. There was an overall 8% decrease in Part 1 crimes again. That's been the trend for over 3 years now. Usually it's in the teens or a little bit higher when that decrease occurs, but there's still a notable decrease. You've heard me say it before, and I'll continue. It's still above zero, and we won't be happy until it's at zero.
And when you talk about staffing, your staffing levels have been pretty good for the past few quarters, right? You've hit that 250-ish mark and kept it there. So with better staffing, there's more opportunity for that, maybe community engagement. Has there been more of that, and has it had an impact in the city?
Definitely. We utilize our CROs for a lot of that, but the special events that Ashley talked about, those are our outreach events where we're able to get out there and talk to residents. What are some of the problems that you're seeing, and then we can address them as managers. You see the police chief is out there at these special events to talk to residents. That's why we have them. And you'll continue to see more. Those are the special events that Ashley again brought up. National Night Out is a good one as well. We have a lot of residents show up for that, and you'll see all the chiefs and captains and everybody out there. So it's not just our CROs. We task them, and that is their priority, but we all care about it. We all go to neighborhood meetings. We all discuss it on a regular basis. What can we be doing as management to help our CROs, to help our patrol officers? And yeah, it's definitely a priority for us, outreach events and engaging with the community.
So I got one. You guys said you average 39 traffic stops right now. What does that say about the community? Is that a good thing if it's a low number or a high number?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess it just depends. We get these, we focus on areas where we receive the complaints and where we've had the accidents. So if accidents are down, I would suspect that those numbers could start to go down as well for traffic stops. But we probably receive 5 to 10 complaints per month about speeders or about people running stop signs. Those can come in through council members sometimes. Our mayor's office gets complaints that get forwarded to us. We receive them directly. So those are we put those onto a spreadsheet, we pass them on to the shifts, and they immediately begin working on those. If those numbers go down, that's something I would look at. If Chief or I are frustrated because our officers aren't making traffic stops, that's the first thing I would look at. Are we not receiving as many complaints? Have our crashes gone down? Maybe that's why our officers aren't making as many stops.
Yeah, that is a valid question. Do the math when you have 20, 25 officers working at a time. No matter how much you try to run a stretch, you're not going to cover 44 square miles without including alleys, or if it does include alleys, if it's irrelevant. But to look in there in parking lots and everything else, parks, we cannot be everywhere at once. Everybody in this room has noticed a traffic violation, probably even committed one yourself, and usually wonder, man, where's a cop when you need one? Or thank goodness there's not one behind me right now for what I just did. So just a matter of time that, I mean, the simple objective is you see a stop sign, stop. Red light, stop. Don't speed. At least be close to the speed limit. If somebody robs a bank, you don't shoot a gun in the air to draw your attention. So same thing with traffic stops. If you don't do anything wrong, we're not going to pay attention to you.
I have a question. I'm Jordan, by the way, from ABC 57.
Hi, Jordan.
So I have a question about traffic stops. You said a lot of them come from complaints, a lot of the enforcement areas. So how is the best way for people to get a hold of you or, make those complaints known? They're worried about,
I don't want to get struck by the mayor right now, but that's usually how that we usually get a lot of them from the mayor's office, from like Dan said, from council members. Our neighborhood meetings are a huge resource of where we get those. Our CROs, our community resource officers, when they attend these meetings or elsewhere, Mayor's Night Out, or what do we call it now? Meet the Mayor, Mayor's Night Out, National Night Out, all these different events, we get them. I get text messages, they get text messages, so those are all opportunities. So and quite frankly, we monitor social media. A lot of them do come from that, and we do vet those.
So the traffic, we know the traffic accidents, that's data we have, so we don't need residents to reach out about that necessarily, but you could reach out to 311, the non-emergency line. I don't know if we have an online submission for traffic violations. I'm looking at INT. It looks like we do.
Yep.
So you could go on the website and report an area. So lots of different ways.
Chief Skibins, can you talk about what is the criteria for establishing a focused intersection? Because I'm looking at Western and Walnut. Now there was a fatal crash in May, and then in January 2 kids were seriously injured. So what goes into defining a focused intersection, and why were these identified?
Sure, yeah, this goes off of collision numbers, so both non-injury and injury from 2024. Those are I believe there's 5 on there from that slide, or is there 6? Those were generated from 2024 data. And so we look at each quarter in 2025 to see if there's improvements or any changes, and that's how we would adjust resources to those intersections. One of the things I sat down with our traffic coordinator about is looking specifically at injury accidents also. So if there's an outlier that maybe didn't have top 5 or 6 crashes in 2024, but yet it had some high number for injury accidents, we would add that to the list as well.
And this is a dual role. So we complete a crash report that's submitted through Aries into our data system. IT has a person who actually vets through that data based on what we put on crash reports, and then does that outside of the police department. So we are confirming, or if there's an issue, we have discussions to confirm or deny that that is occurring. And then from there, that's where we establish that.
Okay, so there's 5 just crashes at Walnut and Western in quarter 2.
Quarter 2, yes.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, Hannah, I missed that. Did you say
She said it's through quarter, so quarter what's from January till now?
5 total?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm John Kim from WNDU. I have some questions about the ongoing shootings happening at the parks and public spaces. I have questions to both the mayor and the chief. So we've reported some several stories of shootings that resulted or not on the injuries or the casualties. One of them was happening at Bowman Park on June 30th, leading to people injured. And I want to ask, what's the police department's protocol when it comes to the increasing violences and shootings when it comes to the public spaces? And I also want to ask Mayor, what's the city's regulations and laws of discharging guns at public spaces and park?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of issues at play here, but I mean, first and foremost, our public spaces are places where people gather, and that's a good thing. And the folks that are driving the violence like to go to the same places oftentimes where people gather. So whether that's a commercial corridor, whether that's a public space at a park, the chiefs have alluded to the fact that the resource router, since there had been some incidents over the past month at our parks, we have gone more to the parks, but Chief also said there's 42, 44 square miles of a city. They'll find spots to hang out. If it's not a public park, they'll find other spots to go hang out in. And then, it doesn't always lead to gunfire, but, a lot of this is socialization. There's some sort of beef, maybe there are some sort of substances being consumed, and then it leads to someone pulls out a gun, and then now there's all of a sudden shots fired.